Welcome to this week's episode of the Evolve to Succeed podcast. My guest this week is somebody I've wanted on the podcast for a number of years. It's an individual called Simon White. Simon has built a business, he's undertaken a management buyout, he's sold a business to an employee ownership trust and done so much more. So we're going to talk to Simon about his journey, which I hope you'll really enjoy this conversation with Simon. And if you do, then please do help us by subscribing to the channel and listening to us every week. Thank you and enjoy the show. Welcome, Simon, to the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Thank you, Warren.
Really great to have you on the podcast. I've wanted you on the podcast for a number of years now because I think you've got a really interesting story to tell and some lessons for our listeners from a perspective of it. You've gone through as we'll find out, a management buyout process. You've grown the business, you've then sold it, and now you're investing as a kind of Ned in some other ventures. So I think there's so much content in this conversation.
Well, hopefully. I'm sorry it's taken so long to get here.
It's
but
okay. I've got you here
it's
now.
Good. Yeah, you have got me there. So
you captured now. Yeah. So I suppose your journey in life has really been in technology and IT. Yeah. So what got you involved and started in IT originally, Simon?
Well, interesting question. An interesting start, I would guess. I kind of left school at 16. Yeah. I wasn't particularly into school, I have to say, in education. I didn't I almost have to see the benefit of something. Yeah. And so I left school as soon as I could. Yeah. I did okay with some of the exams because I think I wasn't stupid. So but I didn't
apply yourself.
Didn't apply myself. Probably didn't go all the time in the last couple of years. So got out as soon as I could. Did a couple of casual jobs, trying to float around, see what I wanted to do, see what the options were. And I saw there was a job advertised in a local IT company for a trainee computer engineer. Okay. South Coast Computers in Ferndown. I grew up in Ferndown. Yeah. I think my mum dropped a CV in for me. I can't remember what I was doing. And so I found out a few weeks later that once I got the job, that one of the main reasons I got the job was so they like my mum. So it's like, so that's how. So I have her to thank. Benefits. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's how I initially got into IT, and I worked at.
So it was kind of by coincidence rather than planning.
Yeah, it kind of looked like it wasn't something I had a desire to get involved in. But it was certainly a lot better than I was working for a kitchen fitting company or something at the time that I'd kind of fallen. So it was like, I need to get a career. Yeah. Although it was a lot less money than I'd been earning, but I thought, no, I need to actually start doing something that might lead into something. So, and I enjoyed it. And I don't know if it was necessarily IT or the fact I enjoyed business and being in a business, and IT could have an effect on a business.
Because that was an owner-managed business.
It was an owner-managed business, family business, which I'll come on to. That's probably one of the reasons we kind of left and set up. Yeah. But at the time, it was great. Yeah. And I enjoyed it. Interestingly enough, I ended up doing quite a lot of exams and studying. Yeah. In that career and that business, and I'd work into the early hours of the morning studying IT acronyms and things like this, and I actually did that because there was a means to an end.
There was a purpose.
Yeah, I couldn't really see that at school. Yeah. So did that for about 3 or 4 years. It was really good. Then I split up with a girlfriend I'd been quite serious with, and went off to America playing football. I was playing quite a good standard semi-professional football at the time, so I disappeared with a couple of mates. We went and did soccer camps over in America for 6 months. Got offered a scholarship to go to uni over there, and for free if I'd play football for them, but decided to turn it. I'd seen enough in the IT world and the business world that I wanted. I think I was 21 then. Right. But even at 21, you're kind of thinking, I don't want to waste 4 years now. Yeah. Which would have been fun. Yeah, it would have been. It was great over in the States. The uni was fantastic. We did a lot of soccer camps there. And you look back now and thought, that was quite an opportunity to turn down. But I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to get back. I didn't want to lose any more time in my career and start building it and see where I could go.
That's a real crossroads moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and I actually came back to another company called Deverell's in Poole that you probably remember. Worked with them for a couple of years, and then South Coast approached me to come back in a management position. So I went back and worked at South Coast for another, till we set up Enhance, really. But I was also lucky when I started in IT, because I started a year after the IBM PC was launched, which has really defined IT and technology.
The whole momentum,
so anything prior to that was pretty, not worth knowing, to be fair. So I was lucky. I got into IT at the right time. Almost like a bit like AI now, to be fair, but we'll come on to that later. But there are similarities, really, and maybe it's the time, sometimes,
And is that your inquisitive mind?
Maybe, yeah, I think so. I think I am very inquisitive, and it was a new, back then it was kind of like
this is new,
newish. Okay, IT had been around for a long time, but this type of technology and networking PCs, which I got involved in heavily into networking, that's where my qualifications came from. I was a network engineer and then advanced network engineer, and I enjoyed that, and it was quite, and I started to make quite good money. For a youngish guy, I had a company car. It was quite a good business to be in. The rewards were quite good. You would
have had the trappings of
in your 20s and doing well. So, and I think, and then at the time of Enhanced, when we set up Enhanced, I'd been in the industry about 10 years. Was now kind of senior manager at an owner-managed company, and along with a couple of my peers, Mark Pollock and Andy Yule, we approached the Pottingers who owned South Coast Computers and said, where are we going with this? We'd like a piece of the action. We'd like to get involved. They were quite receptive at the time, but nothing really came forward. Right. They then employed their son and daughter into business in senior positions, and you could just see it wasn't, there wasn't anything there for us what we wanted. And we had a good friend of ours who was a client, actually, but a local businessman, Peter Wintle.
Okay.
Well, you would have met Peter at the MBO, who was a really successful local businessman. He ran Coopers of Wessex, big wine merchant. And he said to us, if you ever want to get into business, come and speak to me. If you want to do something on your own, come and speak to me. So we sat down with Peter, and he was great because we knew our business, but we didn't know business. We'd worked for someone else. And Peter got involved with his accountant, Harvey Rose, who was from a top London firm, Allen Burling Gardner. And I think they gave us 10 grand for 25% of the business, which at the time was like, it was a win-win, really, because we needed...
You need that capital.
We need a bit of capital. I know it wasn't a lot of money. We could probably borrow that, to be fair, but we needed their expertise and their advice and their guidance, because we wouldn't have had a clue of what do we do? How do we set up a business? What do we do? And I remember it clearly because the 10 grand kind of bought a small little telephone system, and Harvey Rose, part of him coming to the party, they were about to do a big refresh at his firm of accountants up in London. He said, "Well, we'll give you the contract for that." So that was our first. And actually the rest of the 10 grand, a lot of that went in buying kit, buying PCs and kit to take up there, and because we had limited terms we could get with suppliers. And
can you remember what it felt like to be at that start?
Yeah, it was. Stage? It was incredibly exciting. It was a bit daunting as well. I'd left South Coast Computers like a month before the guy. We kind of staggered it, and I was doing an IT contract at American Express in Poole here. So I had a bit of a base, and then as soon as we started IT, I stayed on there and worked for Enhanced and Amex, and we put the Amex money that went straight into the pot as well. So we kind of built from there. But at one point, I remember Amex needed someone on the IT support. They had futures traders in Singapore that were being supported by the UK. So there was one guy in the office at Amex that had to work till 11 o'clock. And part of the contract was they needed IT support. So they said, well, do you want to come in and do the 4 to 11 shift? There's not going to be anything to do because you're looking after one guy. If he has a problem, you've got to be there. But you could do some of your enhanced work. They were quite keen to help me and look after me because I was also playing for their football team at the time. So I think they wanted to keep me on at the football team. So, but like you say earlier, you leverage everything you can, don't you? So I used to go and do all the proposals and stuff in the evening and reports while we were being paid by.
It's interesting those early days. What we all do to make it happen.
100%. We had. I remember they had a virus scare, and this back in the days of the 3.5-inch floppy drives, right? And so every computer in the building, and there's about 250, 300 people at Amex about that time, and every disk in the building, and there was like racks of these things, had to be virus checked, and we offered to do it for them. I think we were paying something like £60 an hour each, so we were on £180 an hour to do this thing. And we worked all weekend, all night, everything, and we might have got a better rate at the weekend, but yeah, and we were literally it was the most mind-numbing, boring thing to do, but we were just every hour, that's another thing, ching 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 ching.
Here we go.
I don't know, it was a few grand for the weekend, but you did what you needed to do, you know,
whatever you need to do to get business off the ground, don't you?
Of course,
and I've forgotten. Obviously, I started this episode with the fact you've done the MBO, but that leads on from that, doesn't it? But you did that startup hustle.
Yeah, the startup hustle. And I remember, I left South Compute personally. I left South Compute. I set up Enhance. Had 2 young children. Right. Recently married. Kind of like didn't have any. We were living to our means, like you did, or usually slightly outside it. I had a company car with South Coast, so I then had to find some money for a car. And that was a funny story. I bought a Nissan thing. I'm not a big car. It kind of looked presentable, but it cost about 800 quid. And this thing kept breaking down to a point of where I got thrown out of the RA. Apparently, I didn't know this, but you can only have about 6 or 8 incidents a year. And I exceeded that. And, I got kicked out of the RSC because of this blooming car. And I remember when we'd done the job we did in London, Found Berlin Garden, our first big network install, that used up all our money. So as soon as we'd done it, we were desperate for payment. And I remember, you do the old thing, we ring, I'm coming past, can I pop in and get a check? Because back in the days of the checks, So I drove to London just to get this bloody check because we needed it to get this check. We needed it just to fund the next, we were starting to get some business coming through. And got the check. And when I used to go, they were up in Holborn, so I used to drive through the centre of town. It was quite the quickest way, really. And this car, the problem with this car is it had electrical fault. So suddenly you stop and you wouldn't start. And they never got to the bottom of it. So I should have persisted because it was the same fault, It was but I stopped at Trafalgar, the junction by Trafalgar Square, and it wouldn't start. And a bus came up and parked up right behind, and then cars, and there's traffic lights, and I just got out and walked away, and I blocked the centre of London. It was like, but those are the things you did, wasn't it?
So you make it happen.
Yeah.
So how many years did you trade like that with those partners involved before you did the management buyout, which must have been was when we first met? I just started
2008,
up
wasn't it?
You're one of my first transactions.
Yeah.
I helped support.
I think we were about 10, 12 years before that, and we did. Andy Yule. So it's me, Mark, and Andy Yule. Yeah. Andy Yule left after about 5 years. Okay. I think it was interesting because when we first set up with Peter said, what you do is you build a business for 5 years, then you sell it and make loads of money. And I think Andy, I don't know if he's ever comfortable with running the business and he was brilliant. He was a brilliant sales guy, and he was a real good partner to have. But after 5 years, he said, "Yeah, I want out."
Do something different.
I said, it's going really, it's going really. I want to do something different, and it was all around the year 2000 thing, which we went through that as a bit of a crisis, and that was a nightmare for us as an IT company because ultimately what happened to a lot of...
I would have seen that as an opportunity.
Well, you'd think so, wouldn't you? And we did, but we only had so much resource, so you could only do so much work. And the outcome really of the millennium bubble, people think no one was sure what was going to happen. It looked like there was a major problem going to... So everyone just updated, took that opportunity to replace their systems and put in new systems. So we had a very good year, but there was a limit with the amount of resource we had to how much we could post.
So much capacity.
Yeah, and then 21, 22 was horrendous because, a lot of our business comes from our clients, upgrading, recycling, putting new systems. So if you've got something like that sparks everyone to put new systems, you have then
Yeah, everyone's done it. So
everyone's done it. So you're trying to get business. And that was tough for us because we'd actually grown then to a size, we had 20, 25 staff, and that's 25 mouths to feed. Yeah. And no one wants to do any bit. They've done it all. So, yeah, actually, that was one of our toughest times, I'd say. But we got it. It came back, and then it gets into a cycle.
Don't you?
Yeah,
you find it out and you find your way through.
And we got the business up to. It's interesting. I did a lot of work with Sherlaws. I might come on to that after the MBO, because it was after the MBO really, and a lot about kind of black holes in business. And we got around that 2000 time, we got to about 1.5 mil worth of business, and we probably stuck there right up to the MBO. Right, really, you'd have better years, so we probably got up to 2 million the best year, and then maybe down to 1 point. It was around that thing, but we stayed. And it is that kind of that black hole whereby the owners are doing the selling. Whether it's services or products, like we were a bit of a mixture of both, but the owners are the person that's actually going out there bringing in new clients and bringing in orders. And there's a limit to how
so much
big you can get. So then you've got to find a new distribution channel, either it's a sales team or agents or whatever, to then go to the next level. So, but that was interesting. So that kind of, Andy left 2001, I think.
And then what made the MBO happen in 2008? What was the catalyst to that?
Well, I think we still had Peter and Harvey there. Right. Peter then became MD. So originally he was a sleeping partner. Yeah. When Andy left, we all kind of gained a bit more of Andy's share. The business bought the shares, but we needed to restructure. And Andy had kind of taken the role of MD. So Peter took over as MD. Excuse me. So Peter was heavily involved in the business, but obviously he was coming to, Peter was older than that, so was coming to retirement age. So really, the MBO was Peter and Harvey's exit of the business. So, and then we had, so it's still me and Mark that had been there from the beginning. Yeah. We had a couple of really strong candidates within the business that we wanted to get involved at a, director shareholder level. So that's when Jeremy and Mark Machen joined us, and we did the MBO to
facilitate them coming
in.
And Harvey and Peter going.
Yeah.
And can you remember what that felt like? Because that was the point where you really became MD and you really.
Yeah, well, I'd pretty much done I'd been sales director, technical director, and ops director in those first, 12, 14 years. And then, I took over running the business, which was great. But it's interesting, because that's the time that I ended up getting involved with Sherlaws and getting a mentor and someone that could direct me. And I think you need that. It's a lonely place, isn't it? Although I had really good partners, Jeremy in the finance side, but the two Marks were very technical. So when it came to business type stuff, I did feel a bit isolated.
Yeah, and you do, don't you? And it's one of those things when you find yourself in that position, particularly when the business is growing or you have growth aspirations, you do need a sounding board that's external 100%. To the business.
It was the best thing. And not deliberately giving you a plug one, but I can see the stuff you're doing with involved in non-exec type stuff. It's so important for business that's growing. Yeah. And I found Sherlaws by chance, really. One of my guys had been to a Sherlaws lunch where they kind of give a bit of a sample of what they're doing. They're a coaching organisation, coaching consultancy, I would say. And he came back to me and said, you should really, these guys could be good for our business. Would you, I said, I'll have a meeting with this guy. And I remember the first meeting was Richard Gigg, who became really important in our journey, as you know, Richard.
I used Richard for a while as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which came out of that. And he said, well, what can I do for you? And it's like, and I was kind of almost like, in those days, you're very enthusiastic, a little bit cocky. And I said, well, hold on, I'm giving you time. Tell me what you can do for me. And he said, no, it's what. And he was right now. And anyway, we fumbled along, and I was intrigued because I think deep down I knew I needed something. And he said, well, what I could do, I think it was, I don't know, 1,500 quid or whatever it was back then, a couple of days' time, I'll do an assessment of your business, and then we can look through it and see if we could help you or what you might need, which he did do that. And then I remember the most awkward thing, the meeting when he presented his report.
Its findings.
Yeah, and he's like, and I'm thinking, we're doing bloody well here,
I love this business.
Yeah, that's like,
my life. This is
exactly. I've created it. I've taken over 2008. So this is probably about 2010 by now. 2008, we've taken over. we bought the business just before the financial crisis, another kind of thing we had to get through, and we got through it, and we were starting to grow and doing relatively grow and doing quite well. And I was like, come on, tell me how good we are, and it didn't go quite like that. But what he did do was hit a nerve, probably deep down, although I got very defensive, he hit a bit of a nerve, and he said, nothing in this business gets done if it doesn't go through you. 98% of everything you have some involvement in, and he said, that can't go on. And he said a line that I always remember. He said, you got to remember, like, even if someone may only do it 80% as well as you can do it, but in business, sometimes you have to accept that.
80% is good enough.
80% is good enough. And actually, what I did find on the back of that, there were people at certain things and certain roles which were a lot better than me. So it's a letting go thing. But when you've built, that's your baby and you've built it.
That's my experience.
And you feel like you're doing a really good, and you would do relatively a good job, but we weren't going to grow. And that's probably why we only ever get into that 2 million ceiling, 1.5 mil, 2 million ceiling.
Yeah, and I think that's that piece, isn't it? And it's a tough lesson to learn, and it's one that definitely learned in my Inspire journey is you've got to let go of the ego, haven't you?
Yeah.
You've got to let go of that. I am super.
And Richard got me to do it by saying, look, 80% is 80, if they don't do it. Yeah. And actually, we all know, like, if you surround yourself with the people that actually are better than you.
Play to their strengths.
Yeah.
Work out what their strengths are. Play to their strengths. They'll do it better.
They'll do it better than you anyway. Yeah. So, so that was quite a groundbreaking thing. And we did a lot of stuff with Sherlaws over a while. And remember, we set up the Sherlaws Academy where because I loved their frameworks. Yeah. And some of their kind of, I like the IP stuff how they build a business, and it was like, wow, this, and some of this stuff really works. And yes, senior people shouldn't be doing kind of like tasks they don't need to do. They should be focused on what they can bring to the party, and
that's when you started to get some real growth behind the business.
100%, yeah.
Over that 5-6 year period, where did the turnover go from to broadly?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly it, but we pretty much over the next period, we grew the business, I think from 2012 to kind of 2020, we grew it from 1.5 to 5, 6, 7 million. So 6 million, I'd say, because it's kind of set when we did the ETO at 7.5. So yeah.
And how did you feel along that way? I mean, the growth's exciting.
It's exciting, but it comes with challenges, as we were chatting earlier. It creates challenges, and you almost, part of the problem is you then come in. I quite liked selling. I probably always quite liked selling. I liked selling IT and selling solutions. So it's outcomes really. So what what this can do for your business. That's and seeing success stories around it. Really, the IT and the tech. I've never been a techie, which is funny.
Ironic,
really, being and I'm. My children will probably say I'm the least technical. If you want a technical thing fixed, don't come to me. But I see the benefit of it, and I like the outcomes really, and what it could do for business and those things. But I think over that time, and this is a danger I think a lot of business owners have, you kind of then a position is created for you, which is probably maybe not what you enjoy as much, not doing the stuff you really enjoy.
Yeah, we sort of touched on that.
You touched on it. We did. And because you could
then
become
that kind of
the senior manager that deals with, staffing issues, fires that come out of a bit, and you can be this. And actually, Richard Gigg said a good thing to me. He said, when you set the structure of the business up, work out what you want to do and employ the people that can do all the things that you don't want to do. Yeah. Which again is, I would always give that advice to people to say, work out, because you see so many business owners that become, start hating their business because they're not doing any of the things they like doing.
They just evolved to do what needs to be done.
Yeah, and I was lucky with Jeremy all those years because he was like finance, compliance guy, detail guy. You know me, I'm the least detailed.
And my world changed when I always say when I brought Bev into the business and we brought her in that ops kind of role.
So you've got a finisher as well. So I could have the great ideas and then
chuck them over the fence.
Yeah. Can you dot the I's, cross the T's, and So, and then you get good people around you, and the same then when James Cripps came into the business, and he actually came through. He literally came in as an engineer and then showed some promise. So became kind of second in charge to the guy that ran the technical division, who actually started growing that division. We later realised it was probably down to James rather than the guy, you know. And James took over that, but he's a detail, you know, really strong ops detail guy, which I wasn't. So yeah. So in the latter years when it became, you know, Mark Machin exited. I think with both Mark Pollock and Mark Machin, where they were technical guys, they'd done the same thing for a long time. I think they, you know, wanted a different challenge and to do something else.
Of course you had that. How did that feel? Because particularly, you know, Mark Machin and Mark Pollock had been with you from day one.
Yeah.
They didn't come all of the way on that journey with you, did they?
No,
they
not to the end. That's a few years before we
how did that feel?
It's difficult because I think it was right for the business. I think it was right for them. So you kind of like, I don't know if you feel the same as me, One, in business, it's kind of like, even the emotional decision, it was an emotional decision. It was a shame, you know, it was a shame that they didn't see the whole journey out, but the time was probably right for them. I know with Mark Pollock, who'd obviously been with me from the very start, and I'm trying to think what year it was Mark left. I don't know, it was after, I think it was just before COVID probably.
Okay.
So it's probably 6 years ago, something like that, 7 years ago maybe.
Okay.
And so he didn't see the journey out, but it was probably right for him, and he was ready. Yeah. And he wanted to, and it's probably right for the business in a way. So you kind of like, I always think when making those decisions, you got to put the emotions out of it and the personal things. Though, it is hard, but by, you know, if you think you're custodian of the business, you've got to ultimately do I can be quite hard with it. You've got to do what's right. If it's right for the business, it's the right decision, and you've got to make it work and make it best. And both, you know, both guys
in that process.
Yeah, and both guys, they drove it both times. But in hindsight, looking back, it was right. I think it was right for the business, and you know, and they were happy, and you try and make it as a good party, and so it's fine. So
a very quick break from this week's episode, which I hope you're enjoying. If you are enjoying, please remember, do help us and help yourself to make sure you don't miss an episode by subscribing and reviewing the episode. So that's it. Short interlude from me. Let's get back to the conversation. And then what drove that? So obviously nearly 20 years in kind of business.
Yeah.
Or over 20 years in business.
Yeah.
What drove you to think about, right, actually it might be the time for me to exit? And then what drove that towards that EOT kind of
it's interesting because, you know, since the MBO, we'd gone on a great, you know, we were growing as a business. You have the odd flat spot, but, you know, growth is never linear, is it? So you'll go up. Well, I think you go up, flat spot, you know, assess,
build your
work out.
Capacity and ability.
Which is exactly like one of the Sherlaw's things, which we've gone through before. Capacity, that's it. You kind of almost build cups. Yeah. Fill the cup up, then you've got to build another cup, fill the cup up. And that's how you... So I was always caught along by, you know, the ambition, because I'm very ambitious and competitive, the next cup, the next journey. And
here we go again,
and I think we got approached in COVID, actually, and got, you know, COVID was another huge challenge, wasn't it? And we had our best month ever, February 2020, okay, which was fantastic. But also, at that point in time, we had our highest debtors ever. And I remember COVID, my biggest fear was people aren't going to pay. Okay, you're going to kind of bolt down the hatches. Because none of us knew, really. And fortunately, I think we had, certainly with our clients, I'm sure other business had almost a community feel. Everyone helped each other. And we didn't have that at all. So, but we'd gone through COVID in the summer 2020. So we're still involved in it. We got approached by a firm. We had people reach out, but I think COVID also made people think about, you know, you got a bit more time on your hands, and you kind of almost got off the treadmill for a little while. And I thought, actually, you know, this life balance with a bit more time is
what's it all about?
Whereas I think a lot of the time prior to that, a lot of years prior to that, you're just running,
particularly if you're like you and I, and you definitely, you've got that competitive spirit. Then you're in it to win.
You'll run into the next level, aren't you?
You're running to the next challenge, the next level, that next bit of growth, that next opportunity, aren't you? And I suppose, as you say, COVID gave that chance. Well, actually, I can't behave like that. I've got to be more reflective.
And you did start. And I remember being at home in COVID, and I had all these dashboards, about 4 screens, all those dashboards. I sort of it as like the control center. We were looking at money in the bank, people, because we furloughed some people, as businesses did. Found out very soon that actually our business continued quite well. So we had to unfurlough people because we'd kind of gone to, but we did okay. And but I literally was spending 2 or 3 hours. We'd have a management meeting every morning, a call on Zoom or Teams. This was when we first got used to that, wasn't it? It seems years ago, but
thankfully,
so 5 years ago, we'd have a management call, and I'd go through all the numbers, and I'd literally work about 2 hours a day. And then the guys would go out, do everything, and we'd kind of reassess every day. And I liked it. I was in control, and I had all the things, and things were going well. And then I had quite a bit of spare time. So I think it's probably hatched then. And then we got a serious approach for the business that we took seriously. That we went quiet and started going. And also, I think by then the business had got some good value. So you also kind of look from your inwards and you think, so what's the number? Because obviously, people when you're in business, I remember the old thing. People always say, "So what's your number?" And you kind of think, "I don't really know actually. What is your number? What are you working to? What's your number to get out?" And I wasn't sure, but you had an indication of where it would be. And I think around that time we had this approach, and the valuations we were talking about. You thought, well, actually, that works.
Yeah, I can make that work.
Yeah, that could work. So suddenly you start viewing it a bit differently, and could have COVID and I thought actually the deal would be good for Enhanced because it was with a city-backed kind of investment fund, but it was relatively small, and they were buying up a number of kind of firms in the digital space, and then we would be the IT partner that then could sell. They could put into all these companies. So there was about 8 or 10 companies, so it wasn't massive. And it would open up a load of business to Enhance. And I kind of thought that would be...
You're quite excited about it as a business.
Yeah, for the business,
which
because...
I think you've got to be. I was when we sold to Azette.
Yeah, exactly. So similar thing.
And all of the things we struggled with.
Yes.
Expertise.
Well, we were then struggling to grow. We were 7 million turnover. But then how do we get to the next level? That would have got us to the next level. Got us the guys. And we got quite close to it. And then, it wasn't all... the money was there, but... I think how it would have run, and initially we'd have been very self-contained, run it ourselves. Then you start saying, well, actually, I don't think it would work like that. And there would be some economies of scale, which I was very keen, having built Enhanced over, it took us quite a while to do it. I'm thinking, if I did it again, I could do it a lot quicker, especially with some of the AI tool, But you kind of think about the start. A lot of people come on the journey. We had 3 or 4 people that have been with us 20 years. But all people there. And you then you realise it's not just about the money. So it's about the legacy. It's about the people in the business. And I straight away kind of thought, no, we can't do a deal where, we walk away great with a big pot of gold in a pocket, but our accounts team get laid off. I don't know, someone else comes in, runs this, and it gets broken up. So we walked away from that deal and didn't think, but it was kind of a seed planted. Okay. And then I remember having a coffee with Lloyd Banks from Rubicon. So this would have been beginning of 21, end of 20 maybe, so probably about 6 months after that, explaining what they were doing. And it was the first time I learnt about an EOT, and just looking at it, looking at the structure, it's like, that's perfect. That's perfect for us, because we want to keep the team in play, and I would love nothing more for them to be then able to take the business on. We had James, who was, a lot younger than me, and Jeremy, who was up and coming, ambitious, who we had an ideal person within, at that, by now Mark had exited, so it was me, James and Jeremy were the directors and shareholders, and we had someone there who was ambitious and wanted to take it on. So it's kind of like...
becomes natural.
Perfect. Yeah. And it was the perfect kind of setup for us. So...
And any advice to people thinking, because it's now becoming quite a popular route for all the reasons that you've explained, for people to achieve
I would definitely look at it if you want an exit. It's not quicker. It depends. Ours is over a 7-year plan, and I'm still involved in the business. But I quite enjoyed it. I think it's nice to work your way out and also be help to guide them into this next phase. So anyone who's spent a long time building a business and has had enough and wants to go is probably not the route.
Because you are backing that team, aren't you?
Exactly.
And most, buyouts of some form, but definitely an EOT.
You are relying
profits,
on
future profits.
Yeah, they've got to buy you out through future profits. We had a bit
belief and trust in.
We had a bit of cash in the bank and about so we were able to take a bit up front, but only it's about the profits and the success of the business going forward. So there's swings and roundabouts, but it's a great market, especially in our industry where the kind of IT tech industry, where most cases you're selling out to a bigger kind of company that's consolidating. And they ain't going to leave the business as it is. So we kind of knew that. So then you're searching for a way out, because we all want, you've built over there. You've got to have the benefits and take the money off the table. But we want to do it. Well, I certainly want to do it, and we want to do it keeping the business intact, and also then giving them the power to take it to the next level. And that, I do believe businesses, if you're not growing, you're going backwards, aren't you? So you've got to keep on the ground.
But with your, you're quite assertive, competitive, in the right way. Kind of, you led from the front.
Yeah.
How have you having gone through this process, being able to accept and take the back seat, not roll the sleeves up and get involved?
Yeah, it's not always easy. I think I was ready though. As well. I remember I woke up the day after we did the EOT. Remember it clearly, although it's nearly 3 years ago now. Yeah. And we did it on finally signed on Monday. I think it's 23rd of March. Woke up the Tuesday morning and it felt like that. I don't know if you ever wake up some days and days roll into one, and then you're half asleep, but you suddenly realise it's Saturday, and there's a kind of feeling of great, I don't have to get in and I woke up that Tuesday and had that same feeling, and I kind of then knew it was the right time. Yeah, but it's not always easy, especially nothing is completely smooth in business. No. The guys are doing really well, but there's things you see and think, maybe I'll do it that way. Yeah, but you've got to step back.
Advise and guide now.
Yeah, so I'm still still on the board.
Yeah.
Me and James have a meeting every 2 weeks, either face to face or on Teams. And I'm a kind of almost a non-exec really in a way, an advisory. So I will, but James is great and he has lots of skills that I don't have. So it's really good. It's just that some of the areas that I probably have the skills that he doesn't have are hard. But you've got to.
And I suppose it comes back to that, and we've had this conversation in the past as well, isn't it? And we started to refer to it earlier. A business does get to the point when you are the founder and the driver and the energy behind it, where if your energy is being depleted and it isn't there and there isn't quite the same love for it, the right decision, but sometimes difficult decision, is to let go and give it to somebody else that's got the energy. And I think we've all seen businesses perhaps that
haven't done that
and fail and diminish as a consequence. So good for you.
And I don't think I got to that stage. I thought they had the energy, but I realised when I almost like a bit with COVID, when you stepped off, you said, actually, there is much more. I need to reflect. And I see it now. But early days it was hard. It's probably hard now as well. Where I had 2 years. Really of not doing, I'm still employed by Enhance on a part-time basis, so I'm there for them whenever they need me. I've got involved in if we've got a big project or sales project to a existing client, I might have a relationship, I've stepped in and had a bit of assistance, but tend to not do a lot apart from my meetings with James, a bit of mentorship and board meetings. Yeah. So I kind of had...
So you kind of enjoyed your 2 years, but then was there a bit of itchy feet, boredom?
Yeah, I don't think it was boredom because I'm always busy. When you're a busy person, you kind of fill your life. I'm never going to sit at home. I don't want to do the garden. I prefer to get somebody to do that. I wouldn't. So I filled my weeks, and it was kind of funny, really. I did a bit of non-exec work.
Okay.
For a good friend of mine in Southampton who was building a business, and that was Jamie Bray. I don't know if you you know him. So Job to Career, so it was a recruitment agency, but I could help him. And I always said that, like, I'd get involved in other things if I liked the person.
Yeah.
I don't need to do it, so I want to do it, and I could add value. And I think I did for a couple of years when I did that with James. So that was good. I'd done little bits, but generally...
How did it feel to be involved in something and not be vested in it?
Well, at the end, that got to the point of where, and we're still really good mates, but I was either going to invest or I was going to stop. So I think that was a realisation a couple of years in to say, firstly, I was very busy. I wasn't bored. But there was nothing driving me. Yeah. So there's a difference, and playing a bit of golf, meeting friends, doing different things. The boo stuff I was doing a bit more. But I needed something, I think. So. Okay.
And along came Olivia AI.
Yes.
So how did that come about?
Well, that was really funny because I've known Nick Carlisle for a number of years and got a lot of respect for Nick. I really, really respect Nick in business. And I knew he was doing this AI thing. That's really what I knew. And then a good friend of ours, one of my oldest friend, David Hull, I was chatting with him, dog walk. I said today, we meet for a dog walk every so often.
We used to go to the pub, now we go for a dog walk.
Well, done that. Dave is about 4 years non-drinking, so that's so we go for a dog walk. But it's great to, and he's still really good, Matt. And he said to me, I was checking to Nick Carlisle what he's doing, and he might be interested in a someone invested. You should talk. And it was like, and then I had sat down and meeting with Nick, and I was kind of pretty much, I met the guys and was sold. And that was perfect for me.
It's tech again, isn't it?
It's tech again.
Advance in tech.
AI, it's a start, a bit like back in the day with, the first IBM PC. I just feel the timing is fantastic. And I love the guy and I love what they're doing. So, and I can do as little as much as I want.
Okay.
Although, it does, you get enthused by something. It kind of like
get embraced by something, get drawn into it, don't you?
But I rarely have. I have a rule one. I try and play golf every Wednesday, although that went out the window this week. And I don't do early morning meetings. So.
One of my quick fire questions is early bird or evening out.
All right. Oh, well, there you go. Well, I met Dave. I think when I saw Dave at the lunch, so he must have, and he said, 8 o'clock in the morning. I actually messaged him yesterday and said, mate, I'm sorry, I don't do 8 o'clock in the morning. He said, I can make 8:30. I said, and I knew I was coming here, so okay. Right. But that's an early start for me. Okay. So.
Evening out.
Yeah.
Not.
Yeah. Perfect. But yeah, so the Olivia stuff's been brilliant.
And obviously, we talk about AI generally, but Olivia AI, I mean, this AI term is so broad, isn't it? I mean, it can blow your mind as to what it is, and it feels now it's being defined as just the next step in technology and how we use technology within businesses. But what does Olivia AI do? Well,
I think what I've learned over my career in technology, there's been fantastic. There's always technology.
The next thing.
Well, there's some great tech out there, and there's stuff way bigger, and it's trying to apply it to business. Yeah. So if you look at businesses use a fraction of the technology that's out there. Okay, they're way behind the curve on technology. And I think the key thing, and I've always said this, is whatever the latest technology, whether it's AI or anything else, you've got to make it easy to understand and to fix a problem. So it's quite straightforward to then implement into a business rather than, I think there's loads of, I was talking to Firm Camps the other day, and they've got a guy who's their AI officer whose job is to try and find out, because everyone's worried we're not using AI.
You're gonna miss this
bus, everyone's using a bit of chat GT, but that's it, GBT, but that's it, isn't it? And they're going to miss the but. So what I loved about Olivia, we've got a range of products, but one of the exciting one for me is our Engage product. So we've got, but it fixes, it creates, it's a sales generation tool, Okay. Every business needs
leads and opportunities.
Needs and opportunities, and it's sales fixes there. One of the Nick's strapline, sales fixes everything, which to a degree,
margin.
Yeah. But most businesses,
it's true.
If they could suddenly plug in a loan, would solve a lot of the problems. Obviously, he goes without saying.
It's the accountant and me.
Exactly. Yeah, but that goes without saying, doesn't it?
But sales does fix things.
So we've got an AI bot that will go out and lead generate, and there's no, this thing is so powerful. It's fantastic, very exciting. But we can train the AI about your business.
Yeah.
So we can feed it your website, everything on your website. We can feed it white papers, FAQs, so we can just train. So you've got your own highly intelligent AI worker, really. It's like an agent as a worker, but they can go and communicate, can be conversational, can go and there's no limit to the amount of conversations they can have.
Yeah.
So one of our tools is the engage point, which is lead generation, or regenerating like old clients, or
going through that old client database.
Yeah, and just go through, and we do a lot by SMS because it, 95% of text messages get opened, and if it's relevant and conversational, and this thing can have, there's no real limit to the number of conversations we have. It actually, we limit the number of conversations because the amount of inquiries the client can deal with
then needs to come through the other side.
Someone needs to be, and it's all, so at the moment, and there's a load of other stuff we're doing, but this is the one I'm excited about at the moment. It's all top of funnel stuff.
Okay.
So it will go out to a database, and it will then create you opportunities for yourself, like to go hot leads straight away. So
watch this space.
Yeah.
And hints, tips, observations about, I've talked about this kind of scope of, much hyped about AI. You've talked about business owners being scared they're missing the bus, they're missing the opportunity.
I think it's finding something that can fix something you're doing. AI at the moment particularly is strong in the heavy lifting stuff. So time consuming stuff. So the thing we've taken, if you think of, sales prospecting, making, suddenly take that out of the equation, we can have 10,000 conversations today with prospects for you. So, but that, that would take months, years of a human doing that.
Well,
so
we've had telesales people in the past
exactly,
doing that for us.
So I would say look at the heavy lifting type stuff where you can really make a difference. There's tools out there, but it's something that is easy to understand and fixes a problem. Okay. And I think that's the key for a business owner, or is to look at that type of thing.
And are you seeing those tools and those applications being adopted by SMEs now? Because
not massively, but I think we will. I think we use an adage: if I came into Evolve office and said, right, we're turning off, and we used to say this about IT and people that didn't want to support contact. So right, let's switch off all the computers and how are you going to run the business? Yeah. I think in 3 to 5 years you'll be talking about AI in the same way.
Right.
Literally, you won't be able to run your business without it. So.
Yeah. And how do business owners get to grasp with it? Maybe this is a question about, from your background, technology altogether, because you sit there as a business owner, you might know your industry inside and out, you know how to satisfy your clients. Yeah. But the bit that feels fear in a lot of business owners' hearts is, how do I adapt? How do I change? How do I make the most of a new opportunity?
Yeah, well, I think it's finding products that will fix a problem within your business, and you can see the immediate return on investment, or the cost saving, or it's saving in the quality. We've got some clients with some of other products whereby you're looking at parts and supply. We've got people that kind of email in, need this part, need that part, and we can run that for them, and it's with the levels. It doesn't make human mistakes. Yeah. So if you've got people printing out emails, then trying to pick things, so and you're already seeing it in a lot of Microsoft are adopting AI in the back of their product. A lot of all software houses it's being ingrained into it. Using AI for cash flow forecasting, so you can look at serious amounts of historic data. Yeah. To predict the future, which as you know from being in that side of business, that's a hard thing for an individual to wade through and trying to get that right. We used to sell finance, we do sell finance products for Enhance, and cash flow forecasting was all we never found anything that could do. But that's just an example.
It's human judgment. You've got the data.
But as a human, if you went back through every scenario, looked at every client, produced a profile for every client for their payment profile, every type of, if you had unlimited hours to go and formulate that, you'd be able to then put quite a good cash flow forecast, because from historically, But AI can do that, in touch of a button. So those type of things, that's just one example.
And where would you like to see Olivia AI as a business in the years ahead then? What's the dreams and aspirations for that business now?
Oh, I don't know. We'll see. It's also very exciting. I love being back involved with a relatively,
that startup energy.
Yeah, in the early years, and it's just, I go into the office. I don't go very often because I'm still trying to keep the balance. And when I do, you just get energized by things are going. But yeah, I don't know. There will be a point in the relatively near future, I think, where we probably get some VC money or something like that coming. And then
that's a business you probably have to scale quite quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is indeed. And we can do so much, but we get it to a point where, again, I think. But we haven't had the conversation. It's in the early days. It's a conversation to be had, but we've got a few exciting things going on at the moment, which just taking the time and focus. But it will be a conversation to have relatively soon, I think. So.
Brilliant. Thank you for so candidly sharing your journey with us. If we could take you back to that 16-year-old, just kind of leaving school, thinking about what might the future hold.
I'd have gone to America and play football.
I was going to say, what advice would you give that 16-year-old knowing what you know now?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because we've got kids that are kind of, mine are a little bit older than that now, not a lot older, and you try and give them, I think you've got to try stuff. Yeah. And you will find something that grabs you. I think you've got to get involved. And interestingly, as I said, I don't think I was ever a big techie or really into the IT, but I love business and I love growing a business and I love what the IT could do for a business, because you could do projects and you could see the massive benefits to the business. For Enhance, we've grown. We've got some clients that have grown massively, which we've really helped. So that's what I found, something that I enjoy. So I think you've got to try stuff and find something you really enjoy and find your kind of almost your calling in a way, without being corny, but something, because you're going to be doing this for a long time. So do something you enjoy.
Brilliant, fantastic. You ready for some quick fire questions?
Go on then, I'll try. Go on.
So, one word that describes your leadership style.
One word. You're probably better off asking the people that work for me. I would like to think I'm a collaborator. I like to take people with me and, get their input, but have them on board rather than a dictatorship. I'd like to kind of
collaborative.
Yeah,
I think I've seen that over the years in you. I'd agree with that.
I hope so.
Yeah, definitely, I would.
Yeah.
You've kind of referred to some of the advice that Richard gave you. What's the best piece of business advice that you've ever received?
Oh, I don't know. There was another. Well, there's a couple probably. So you've asked for one, but there's a couple. So I think that even if someone will only do it 80% as well as you will do it, if you want to grow a business, that's okay. Yeah. The other thing he did in the later years, one thing he said is make yourself redundant. Yeah. So bringing people around you that can do what you do. So build yourself out. And
once you've got the business, I think there's
not at this stage of the living, but at later stages of a business, and you starting to look at it, you make yourself redundant.
It's a stage. Yeah. Definitely. Biggest misconception of AI.
Don't know, because it's still early days, Warren. I don't think it will take everyone's jobs. I think this is people are worried that we've got a future of robots. I think it's a massive tool, and I think the people that will win are the people that use AI to empower themselves rather than use AI to replace themselves. So I think that would be the biggest misconception.
Okay, perfect. I like that. What's the one thing that's keeping you awake at night now? Or is life so rosy that you sleep like a baby?
I still get excited about stuff, I'm still excited about Enhance, although it's at arm's length, seeing them grow. Very excited about the Olivia product. I'm doing a bit of advisory stuff for Fire, Dan Smith at Fireworks. Now I'm wearing 3 hats at the moment. Okay. So I'm excited about the stuff I've just started doing with them. And a couple of days a month, but it's still really... So those are the type of things. My golf game probably, but that's probably not in a positive way, except for the next really nice trip I might go on, of course. But I think. And
as a person that's worked in tech, what's the one piece of tech that you couldn't do without?
Well, Olivia AI, obviously. How could I say anything else right now? I was like,
Yeah, but bit of tech that you personally can do that?
I don't know. What do we do? Tricky one, because I'm not a big techie, but I guess we rely on our phones now, don't we? Our phones are life. Do you know, I leave my phone behind occasionally, and even to go and walk the dog, not deliberately, and you kind of almost feel a bit. It's quite nice in a way, but you do have.
What we should do, we should all disconnect.
Yeah, definitely. But there is, there's that element of kind of what happens. Well, I'm not there to resolve something. Or it was interesting. I read Bill Gates' first book. This is years ago, and he talked about. This is before the iPhone and the personal phone. Mobile phones are about, but before this. Yeah, and he talked about a watch would be your personal kind of assistant. And he was dead right, but I think, I know you have Apple Watches and things now, but it was the phone. Well, what he talked about in that book was what the phone has become.
Wow. What is it going to become?
So, I don't know if there's probably something else that I'm not thinking about, but yeah.
Perfect. And I always end with this question. So what's your personal definition of success, Simon, given the journey that you've been
on? I think being happy. I know it's a bit corny, but being happy and being able to do the things you want to do with your friends and family and loved ones.
That's not corny at all.
Well, the happiness thing is, but I think you've got to be happy and content. You can see people make a lot of money and aren't. So you've got to be happy and content, but be able to, okay, I can't say yes to everything I want to do necessarily, but there's a lot of good stuff that I really want to do that I can now do with my family and friends. So
I think you've done well, because there's this question in business, isn't it? Is when's enough? And some people just strive for as much as they can.
I think I made a really good decision, probably the best decision I've ever made. One was to do the EOT at the time, because we had plans. We had plans in place for the next level of enhanced, and I was quite keen to get beyond that journey. Which I kind of am at arm's length by doing the OT, but I could have kept going, and and an exit at that point would have probably earned me some more money. But it comes to a point where you think, actually, if I've got enough money, I can.
Yeah, I think, like I said, compliment to you. I think you very much realise when's enough.
Yeah. And I can get involved in other things now, but I get involved in things like Olivier, doing some advisory work for fireworks, and I've done other things. I can do those that I want because I want to do them, not because I need to do them. And I could stop if I didn't want to do them. So.
Perfect. So if people want to know more about Simon or connect with you or find out more about Olivier AI or Enhanced, where can they go?
Message me on LinkedIn, I would think, would probably be the best bet.
And there's links to all of the businesses on there.
Yeah, exactly right. And certainly I'd love to talk to them. So definitely.
As I said earlier, thank you for being so candid. Thank you for sharing your journey with us.
Yeah.
I've been waiting to have you on a guest. You haven't let me down, Simon. Thank you for being a great guest on the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Thank you very much, Ross.
So I promised you an interesting episode, and I think we've definitely had that. I'd forgotten he had actually done the startup at Enhanced, as well as that management buyout process, as well as the EOT, and now investing in other businesses. So I hope you enjoyed that episode. I hope you've taken away at least one thing that would inspire you or give you an action to undertake within your life, within your business. And if you have enjoyed, then please, as I always say, help us by rating, subscribing, and reviewing this podcast. See you next week.